Ultimogeniture, also known as postremogeniture, a junior right, is the tradition of inheritance by the last born of the entirety of, or a privileged position in, a parent's wealth, estate or office. The tradition has been far rarer historically than primogeniture, a partible inheritance. Advantages and disadvantages. Ultimogeniture might be considered appropriate in circumstances where the youngest child had been assigned the role of keeping the hearth, taking care of the parents and continuing at home, whereas elder children had had time and opportunity to succeed in the world and provide for themselves. In a variation on the system, elder children might have received a share of land and movable property at a younger age, for example when marrying and founding their own family. Ultimogeniture might also be considered appropriate for the estates of elder rulers and property owners, whose children were likely to be mature adults. There are several disadvantages for realms and families that adopt ultimogeniture. One such drawback is the fact that elder siblings, especially the firstborn of the relevant gender, will be heavily incentivized to sidestep the tradition, even more so if primogeniture inheritance is a familiar concept, and since the elder siblings likely have more time and opportunities to gain power, wealth, experience, and influence prior to the inheritance, simply because they were born earlier. Ultimogeniture traditions are more likely to be disregarded or even discarded. Coercion, assassination, fratricide, or even patricide can be committed, backed by all the advantage an elder sibling would have, such that ultimogeniture is sidestepped. To clarify, those who stand to gain by ignoring the stipulation under ultimogeniture are more likely to have the facticity to do so, when compared to other succession laws. For example, under primogeniture tradition, the younger siblings will stand to gain if they can bypass said tradition, but the elder siblings still have the aforementioned advantages, so primogeniture traditions tend to persist. Usage examples. Many folkloric traditions around the world include important figures who were youngest siblings, although they are subject to various interpretations. Several important biblical characters, including Isaac, Jacob, and David, are described as youngest sons or daughters, leading some scholars to propose a prehistoric practice of ultimogeniture among the Hebrews, although this form of inheritance is not espoused by the preserved text. In some early Greek myths, kingship was conferred by marriage to a tribal nymph, who was selected by ultimogeniture, a success in a race. In England, patrilineal ultimogeniture is known as borough English, after its former practice in various ancient English boroughs. It was only enforced against those who died intestate and frequently, though not universally, also included the principle of inheritance by the deceased's youngest brother when there was no issue. Less often, the practice was extended to the youngest daughter, sister, aunt, and amp. C. Its origin is much disputed, although the Normans, who generally practiced primogeniture, considered it to be a Saxon legacy. A 1327 court case found it to be the practice of the English borough at Nottingham, although not of the town's French district. The tradition was also found across many rural areas of England where lands were held in tenure by socage. It also occurred in copyhold manors in Surrey, Middlesex, Suffolk, and Sussex. In the German Duchy of Saxe-Altenburg, land holdings traditionally passed to the youngest son, who might then employ his older brothers as farm workers. In some southwestern areas of Japan, property was traditionally apportioned by a modified version of ultimogeniture known as Mashi Suzuka. An estate was distributed equally among all sons or children. except that the youngest received a double share as a reward for caring for the elderly parents in the last years. Official surveys conducted during the early years of the Meiji era demonstrated that the most common family form throughout the country during the Edo period was characterized by stem structure, patrilineal descent, patrivirile local residence, and patrilineal primogeniture. But in some southwestern areas, this combination of partible inheritance and ultimogeniture was sometimes employed. Among Mongols, each son received part of the family head as he married, with the elder sons receiving more than the younger ones, but the ancestral seat was inherited by the youngest along with his share of the head. Likewise, each son inherited part of the family's camping lands and pastures, with the elder sons receiving more than the younger ones, but further afield from the family tent. Similarly, Genghis Khan's empire was divided among all four of his sons, but the Mongolian homeland was passed to his youngest Tolui. The Kachin of northern Burma and southern China traditionally instruct elder sons to move away upon maturity, leaving the youngest son to inherit the family property.